to the Adult Sports Situation Network, otherwise known as ASSN. I'm your host, 12, and I'm putting my foot down. The Chicago Bears have finally made a move. They get their guy, Ben Johnson. But is it good enough? And how will this play out? We're getting into all that in this episode. Let's get it.
Here's your host, 12-inch.
Welcome to ASSN, the Adult Sports Situation Network. I'm 12, and let's get right into it. The Bears do hire Ben Johnson. They finally get their guy. Now, what do we get with Ben Johnson? There's pros and there's negatives, cons, I would say, to everything and every coach that you hire. I mean, right now we're looking at a situation where the Bears brass should get an applause because you got George McCaskey. You have President and CEO Kevin Warren, as well as our GM Ryan Poles, making a move, not wasting too much more time right after the Detroit Lions were ousted in the playoffs by the Washington Commanders. Now, if you look at the timeline leading up to this hire, you notice that they whiffed on many. I mean, they whiffed on Dan Campbell. They whiffed on having Quinn. They whiffed on having Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, they whiffed on a lot of things. But there's a time and a place where the whiffing must end. And at this at bat, it looks like it's ending with Ben Johnson. Why is Ben Johnson good? Well, let's first say that it came down to a two-horse race between somebody who has experience, who can steady the ship, who knows how to work the offense, who's taking a team to a Super Bowl and won one, being in Green Bay. We're talking about Mike McCarthy. Someone who has led the Dallas Cowboys to 12-5 records, who's done actually a magnificent job with that team. Maybe the ownership, Jerry Jones, maybe things didn't work out correctly. They tried to extend his contract. But because of this year, with injuries and things that happened during the NFL season, they decided to part ways because this year wasn't as good as the last. And sometimes that does happen. The Bears did try to call to make sure if he was available so they can interview him. They said no, they declined it. Just a little bit later, a few days later, he becomes available. So basically you have Ben Johnson, somebody who's fresh and young and somebody who's spectacular on the offensive side of the ball, who can make moves and knows how to command the offense and lead on the offensive side of the ball, versus somebody who has experience and has led two franchises to really well seasons and also has a Super Bowl ring. Now, here's the pros and cons right now. With Ben Johnson, you're getting somebody who's young, who's innovative, somebody who's a whiz on the offensive side of the ball, and we saw how that's worked out for other organizations. You can mention Sean McVay, many people. Then you have somebody on the opposite side that has the experience. Now remember, when Andy Reid did leave Philadelphia, they said he's washed up, he's too old, he wouldn't be able to be at the pinnacle of the game, and so on and so forth, right? Then he lands where? In Kansas City. So do keep that in mind. Experience does count for a lot as opposed to learning on the job. And the Bears have learned on the job with the past two coordinators that they hired and made into head coaches. So if you want to start off with the things that we need to look at on the positive end, we have youth, we have talent, we have a team that's almost in ready to win now mode, we have a young GM. We do have somebody with experience as far as being able to lead an organization like Kevin Warren, although it's more on the business side, but his eyes is also on the playing side. But with the marriage, I believe with a young quarterback like Caleb Williams, a young head coach who has nothing but potential and has a track record what he can do on the offensive side with a young GM, I think that's going to be a marriage for success. So the pros are he's youthful, he can connect with Caleb and the rest of the team, and they can grow together. And he brings a playbook that's explosive, as we saw with the Detroit Lions. Even though they were ousted by the Washington Commanders, they still put points up on the board. Now, where the cons lie are the simple fact that he doesn't have the experience, and the Bears are going to take a swing at this again. You got to remember, Matt Nagy, he was supposed to be an offensive genius, although he didn't call any of the plays, basically, but for a couple of games before Andy Reid took it back. And then we followed that up with Matt Eberflus. Ousted Justin Fields, drafted Caleb Williams. But even though this has been a rough ride, especially this past season, especially the way it went that losing streak all the way up until beating Green Bay. Even though that did occur, sometimes things happen the way they happen so it can get to a destination that can be positive. And all those negatives are leading up to a positive, in my opinion, by hiring Ben Johnson. The Bears are getting somebody who's climbed the ranks, who started off at Boston College, then caught on with Miami, then eventually moved to Detroit, got the job at Detroit. Somebody who was able to move up from tight ends coach to being able to be the passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator. And with that, you have somebody who knows how to take everybody's game to another level on the offensive side of the ball. But I think the best thing that the Bears can do to make sure that this ship sets sail correctly is basically to give him a cushion, to give him somebody who has stewardship, somebody who has experience, somebody who has led. And I think about Ron Rivera. They did, fulfill the Rooney Rule, and one of the coaches was Ron Rivera. Now, what happens if you pair a Ben Johnson, who's young, innovative, and has skills and is a whiz on the offensive side of the ball, with somebody who's a Chicago Bear legend, a Super Bowl winner, who's led 2 organizations? And you have to remember, at one time, he was a defensive coordinator for the Bears, and he did an excellent job. So what if you marry those 2 together? So now you have the experience and the leadership on the defensive end of the ball by somebody who's been there, done that, and led 2 organizations, and also played in the trenches, along with somebody who's young, dynamic, and explosive on the offensive side of the ball. Do you guys think that would be a perfect marriage for the Chicago Bears? So let me know what you guys think about that. I think that would be amazing. Guys, we're on our way to 1,000 subs right now. You can help us get there. Join the family, the Adult Sports Situation Network, by hitting that sub button below. That's how you get your ass in. I'm your host, 12-inch, and I just put my foot down on the Bears' moves that they have made today. This might be the beginning of something historic. I think it's going to be something really good. It all hinges on what they do next and how they address the holes that they have on the offensive line, and also possibly getting another edge rusher or somebody that can help out on the defense, create more pressure. But if they do that, we're going to have something really bubbling in the kitchen. But with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. So next time we pull up your YouTube feed, make sure you get your ass in.
We have everything you're looking for. We are your complete couture sports store. We have sweaters, we have hoodies, we have sweatpants, mugs, face masks, pillows, leggings, backpacks, blankets, yoga mats, beach towels, and more. We're not your average merch store. With top-end designs, you'll definitely stand out from the crowd. So get your merch now at ASSN.com and be on the lookout for our digital calendars coming soon. So get your ass in gear.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?